Welcome back. This is episode 4 of Paid to Scale podcast, and I am your host, Gabriella Claraval from Adveryz Digital Marketing. Okay, so if you caught episode 3, you know I teased this one, and honestly, I have been looking forward to recording this episode because this is one of the topics where I feel like once it clicks for you, everything changes, like genuinely. So today, we're going to talk about creative testing, specifically how to build an actual system for it, one that produces winning ads month after month without the guesswork, without the chaos, and without draining your budget trying to figure out what works. Grab your coffee, let's get into it. Here's what I see constantly with small businesses running meta ads. They pick a photo, write some copy, hit publish, and then just wait and hope and maybe check the dashboard 14 times a day. And when it doesn't work, they either give up on ads entirely or they change everything at once: the image, the copy, the audience, the budget, and then they have absolutely no idea what actually moved the needle. That is not testing. They're just changing things and crossing your fingers. A real creative testing system is the opposite of that. It's intentional, it's structured, and it treats every ad you run as a data point in an experiment, not a lottery ticket. The businesses that consistently win on meta ads aren't necessarily the ones with the biggest budgets. They're the ones with the best process for figuring out what resonates and then doubling down on it fast. So let's break that down, what it actually looks like. When I talk about creative testing, I'm really talking about 4 distinct variables. And this is important because when you understand what you're testing, you stop testing randomly. The 4 things are hooks, formats, angles, and offers. Let's go through each one. Hooks are the very first thing everyone sees or hears when they decide to keep scrolling or actually stop. On video, it's your opening line or first visual. On a static image, it's the headline or the thing your eye goes to first. Your hook has one job: pattern interrupt. It needs to make someone stop their scroll long enough to give you a second. Strong hooks are actually one of the 3 things. They're unexpected, they're specific, and they're speaking directly to a frustration your audience already has. Tired of wasting money on ads that don't convert? That is a hook. We offer marketing services for small businesses. This is not a really good hook. The second is formats. Formats are about how the content is delivered. Are you running a static image, a carousel, a short form video, a UGC style clip, a talking head piece? Each format plays differently in the feed, and different audiences respond to different formats. Testing audiences is about finding that container that works best for your message and your specific audience before you invest too heavily in production. 3. Angles. Angles are the why behind the ad. Same product, totally different framing. You can sell a bookkeeping tool from the angle of saving time, or from the angle of reducing stress, or from the angle of looking more professional to clients, or from the angle of never missing a tax deadline again. Same offer, completely different emotional entry points. Angles are honestly one of the most underrated testing variables because they get at something deeper than the creative itself. They reveal what your audience actually cares about. And then offers. And I want to be careful here because a lot of people hear offer and they think discount. That's not what I mean. An offer is what you're asking people to do and what they get in exchange: a free audit, a consultation call, a lead magnet, a limited bonus. Testing your offer is about finding what about your market will actually say yes before you decide to spend serious budget promoting it. This is one of the questions I get most often, and the answer is going to depend on your budget, your capacity, and where you are in the testing process. But let me give you a real framework here. If you're just starting out and working with a modest budget, you don't need to produce 50 creatives a month. What you need is enough variation to learn something. That might look like 8 to 12 creatives per month, testing 2 to 3 new hooks, 2 to 3 different formats, maybe split across 2 different angles. As your budget grows and you've established what formats your audience responds to, you can scale that up. A more aggressive testing phase might involve 20 to 30 new creatives in a month, but that really depends on budget, especially if you are testing a new angle or a new offer and you need to move quickly. But here's the thing most people miss: more creative volume only helps you if your reading of the data is good. Launching 30 creatives and not knowing what you're measuring is just expensive. The volume has to match your ability to analyze and act on what the platform is telling you. A good rule of thumb: never let a test run when you wouldn't know what you learned from it, regardless of the result. Okay, so let's make this practical. How do you actually structure a month of creative testing? Think of it in 2 phases: exploration and I guess you could say exploitation. Exploration is when you're testing new variables, new hooks, new angles, things you haven't tried yet. This is where you're deliberately casting a wider net. You expect most of what you test here to not become your best performers, and that's fine. The goal is to find one or two things that outperform what you're already running. The other is exploitation, which is when you take what's working and squeeze more out of it. You found a hook that's crushing, now you test it across multiple different platforms. You found an angle that resonates, now you test 5 different visuals using that same angle. You keep deepening your understanding of something that's already proven. Most healthy testing accounts are running both phases simultaneously. Maybe 70% of your budget is on scaling proven winners, and 30% is always in exploration mode, testing what would become your next winner. Because here's the thing about winning ads, they don't last forever. Creative fatigue is real, and we'll talk about that in a second. This is where a lot of people get stuck. They either kill ads too early before they have enough data to make a real call, or they let underperformers bleed budget because they can't let go. A few things to look for when deciding whether to kill or scale. When you're looking at early signals, thumb stop rate, hook retention are your best friends. If people aren't making it past the first 3 seconds, the hook isn't working. No amount of budget will fix a broken hook. Kill it and test a new one. If people are watching but not clicking, the angle or the offer might be the problem. Your creative is resonating, but something in the conversion path is off. If people are clicking but not converting, that's often a landing page problem, which is a whole separate conversation, but the ad itself might actually be fine. When you're seeing strong CTR, which stands for click-through rate, low CPMs, which stands for cost per 1,000 of impressions, and your cost per result is trending downward over the first few days, that's a candidate to scale. Cautiously, not all at once, but that's a signal worth paying attention to. On the kill side, if an ad has spent enough to get a statistically meaningful read and it's not hitting your target cost per result, let it go. Don't marry your creatives. The data doesn't lie. Creative fatigue is when your audience has seen your ad enough times that it stops performing. Frequency goes up, CTR goes down, CPMs start to climb. It's one of the most common reasons a campaign that used to work just stops working. Here's what to watch for. If your frequency on a creative is climbing past 3 or 4, start paying attention. If your CTR is dropping week over week while your spend stays the same, that's the platform telling you that the audience is getting tired. If your CPMs are spiking without a clear platform reason, platform-wide reason, fatigue might be the culprit. The fix isn't to panic and blow up the whole campaign. It's to have fresh creative ready to swap in. This is exactly why having a creative system actually matters. Because when one creative fatigues, you already know what's next in line. You don't have to start from scratch. You have a tested backup waiting to take the baton. This is the part that separates businesses that are constantly scrambling from a business that feels like they can have a real handle on their marketing. A creative library is essentially your organized collection of tested assets. The creatives you run, their results, what worked, what didn't, and what you learned. It's not a fallacy. It can literally be a spreadsheet. But it becomes incredibly valuable because it means you're not reinventing the wheel every single month. Your creative library should tell you at a glance which hooks have performed best, which formats your audience responds most to, which angles have driven the best cost per result, and which offers your market is actually willing to raise their hand for. Over time, the library becomes your competitive advantage because you're not guessing anymore, you're building on real foundation of data. Your data from your data from your actual audience on your actual account. That's what it looks like to stop doing random acts of marketing and start building something that compounds. Okay, that is a wrap on episode 4. We covered a lot today: hooks, formats, angles, offers, how to structure your testing month, when to kill versus scaling, creative fatigue, and why building a creative library is one of the smart things you can do for your business. I want to leave you with this. Creative testing doesn't have to be overwhelming. It just has to be intentional. When you have a system, every dollar you spend is teaching you something. And the business that commits to that process, they compound. Month after month, they get better data, better creatives, better results. That is what we are building. If you want to keep the conversation going, come find me over at Adveryz Digital Marketing. Yes, spelled with a Z, or shoot me a message on Instagram. I'd love to hear where you're at. I'd love to hear where you're at with your own creative testing. Until next time, clarity always comes before campaigns. This is Adveryz Digital Marketing. Catch you in the next one.